actually has age. So anyway, the point of the book came out of a series of role-playing games that we did way back in the 1990s. But you may be relieved to notice that none of the actual role-playing game stuff is in this book. It's all original, which is really good because the plots and the way that you develop a role-playing game are completely different from the way that you would develop a novel. But one of the things that this game did have was vibrant characters from almost everybody who participated. And one of the things that Luke did was to try and write down this dialogue, to remember it, to get it. And it was quite obvious that he was really good at writing. And then that, I think, grew into a novel, and 20 or so years later, we actually have the final product, after I'd almost given up, I would have to say. And the books are coming out, and I hope that there will be very many more of them. Anyway, I will now hand you over to the first speaker, Sandra Wixell, who is the owner of the Australian Book Expo, and really important for getting new writers and new books out into the market, and hopefully making the Book Expo as big as the Frankfurt Book Expo and so on. So over to you, Sandra. Thank you.
I once again thank everyone for coming along, and as Ben said, I was really pleased when Luke asked me to come along and help him launch his book today, because it's been a dream of his for 25 years, and I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who've given up over 25 years of following their dreams. They've hit roadblocks, they've hit rejections, they've hit writing blocks, they've lost the plot. I know a few of those who've been overwhelmed by the number of words they've put down on paper and have never quite got back there. So I think just the fact that after 25 years Luke has launched, or is launching, not one but 2 books in a series that he tells me is going to go over 8 books or more is absolutely phenomenal. Emerging writers in the YA genre are very important, because keeping our youth reading and interested in reading is something that is really hard today. You know, writers are up against computer games, Pokemon on the go. If you've walked into any teenagers with Pokemon on the go in the last couple of days, you're pointing.
My son today. My wife's taking me all these parks around Maroubra and stuff, so it's really happy.
I actually downloaded Pokemon on the go today. I hate to admit it, but I did it. The characters in Luke's book, I'm getting Leeth and Luke mixed up here, is absolutely so beautifully researched. As Ben said, he has spent 25 years putting this character together. The depth of research, the characteristics, the backgrounds that he's built for these characters really show that he has been committed to them over those years. He has gone back, he's edited, he's proofed, he's got friends, beta readers, editors to do that to him as well, and for him as well. And I can tell you from Book Expo that I have seen some books where I'm ready to pick the book up and hit the authors over their heads, because they haven't done that. I have. I was only telling the guys earlier, I had only this week read a book where the character broke his collarbone and in the next paragraph shrugged 3 times. Yeah. Anybody with a broken collarbone knows you don't shrug 3 times. This book is a mixture of fantasy, thriller, mystery, suspense, and it's such a mashup, but you don't notice that because you just get so caught up with following what's going to happen. He's researched the science behind it, the psychology behind it. He's drawn maps for the centre it's based in. He has done amazing, and a lot of that is on show on the back there. He actually hand-wrote the manuscript. If anyone hasn't looked at it, go and have a look at the handwritten manuscript. And he did it in pencil. It was before the days of erasable pens. So Luke, I really do, with great enthusiasm, endorse your books. You are a brilliant emerging author in this genre. I wish you all the best. And I'm going to keep this short, as you've all gathered. Luke, please come up and tell us more about your book.
try and keep this reasonably short. I haven't actually. One thing I realised while Sandra was speaking was I hadn't actually prepared a speech. So but there was something. I'm sure there's something I missed to do. So first of all, I'd just like to say, like, a deep thanks for everyone who's come along. It's really great to see you here and see you again. Some of you haven't seen for a long time. So really, it's a great feeling to see you all here. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, so as John said, there's been a long genesis for Leeth and the story, and I have a lot more stories to tell about this and things to cover. And I don't know exactly how it's going to end, because a lot of it I discover as I go along. She keeps surprising me as I throw her into one difficult situation after another, and she finds her way out of them. So I don't know entirely what's going to happen, but I'm very much enjoying discovering that myself as well as I write the books. I was very lucky to find an editor. I like a really good editor, I think, too. So I've learned heaps from working for a professional editor to help me with this. The original manuscript over there, I thought it was pretty good at the time. And then some years later, after a few rejections, I thought, wait a minute, there's the whole second half of the book, there's plenty of story, but there's no plot. There's no plot driving it. I thought, oh, right, that's a problem. So I chopped it in half and thought, all right, that's a bit short. I need some plot, some extra plot for the first sort of oomph it up a bit. And so that, the character Diston was kind of the thing and the story behind him. And that fixing up a novel is quite a lot of work. So I fixed up the novel and then submitted it around and got rejections. And eventually found this editor. I thought it was ready to go, so I was getting ready to self-publish it in about April, May last year. And I saw this offer on Twitter saying, send us the first 5,000 words of your manuscript, we'll give you a free critique assessment. I thought, well, it's good to go, it's perfect, but I'll just have a double check, so it's free again. I got an email back from the chap a few weeks later, and all the advice he had was like, oh, yeah, I should definitely do that. That's a good point. Yeah, okay. And I was sort of having some email discussion back and forth with him, and he's made some comment about, and of course, if you look at the detailed critique, the notes in the document, you'll get more. And I'm thinking, oh, so he's kind of hinting if I pay him the money, then he'll send me the detailed critique. And I thought, but he came across as a really honest bloke. He wouldn't do that. I'll just go back and check that first email that he sent me. And there's an attached Word document that I hadn't noticed, and it was like full of comments, line by line, of like exactly what he said. And by the time I finished, I'd already made the decision. Yeah, I should definitely pay him to critique the entire manuscript. And I was reading this, and I thought, okay, he's bloody good. He knows what he's doing. We're on the same wavelength. It's worth doing this. And then I was really dismayed when he came back and said, Luke, I think you've got this. A month or two later, said, I think you've got 2, maybe 3 books here. You need to split it up. I'll split it again. So, all right. So I resisted splitting it in 3. I split it in half and thought, well, it's a bit thin. I need something extra then. And so the whole invisible monster sort of thing was there. And he particularly wanted to know more about the early stuff, when she was a child and what happened at the Institute for Paranormal Dysfunction. So I've worked all that out and really, really intensely worked on that. I was astonished at just how productive I could be when I really put my mind to it. I think I wrote about 41,000 words in 11 days. Wow. And I spent about 11 days like intensely plotting out like little scenes, extra scenes that were needed, and like a scene that did this and a scene where this happens and this. And so I spent maybe 10 days working that out, and then sat down and just started writing. It came out. Anyway, so that turned into Wild Thing, and then eventually got onto the second. Okay, so that was sort of ready, and I promised I'd have the second novel ready about now. And so I sent off, so I went through all these critiques, the second half of the novel, and fixed up so it was perfect, and sent it off to him for a second check. He came back and he said, Luke, I think it's a bit long, because it was about, it would have been about 600 pages by then. So I think it's a bit long, and I think you missed there's a natural point where you could break in the middle here. Oh no. All right, so I split it again. I think, all right, I think it's okay, and I think got a good ending. and I sent it off to him like just another sort of final re-edit, and he said, "Oh look, I think you missed an opportunity here. There's something that could be a bit tougher, and dealing with that could make a very nice like extra oomph to the climax." I thought, "You're right, Dave." So okay, but he didn't say split it yet, so that turned into harsh lessons. It did mean though that Volume 2 was going to be called Shadow Hunt, but that meant I needed to come up with a new title for the second book. So Harsh Lessons is Volume 2, and Shadow Hunt will be Volume 3. So I think I rabbited it on enough. So yeah, thank you very much for coming along. Yeah, so I'll do just a short reading from just a little over one page. And this is very early on. So this is when Dr. Harmon, the magical researcher, has visited an orphanage to find a suitable subject for his experiments. He's been given carte blanche to pick someone, which is a bit odd. So he and the nun he's just decided to stare at someone. 10 minutes passed. 15. At last he could no longer contain his impatience. "Sister, I'm a very busy man. Is there a problem? Do you not know where your charges are?" The nun spun her chair back to face him. "Please don't let us keep you here, Doctor. I'm sure there are other orphanages in which to do your shopping." Needle, but hiding the fact, he sat back in his chair. "I can wait. I was simply expressing surprise that you're having such difficulty in locating one of your charges." "As I said, please don't let us detain you." He shook his head, not deigning to answer. He'd be doing the girl a favour, removing her from such ineptitude. Silence descended again. The nun made a show of taking back her records and refiling them. Harmon hardly needed the telepathy spell to tell she disliked being in a position of weakness, and her thoughts confirmed his assessment. Really, the girl is impossible. Perhaps this is for the best after all. Harmon began tapping a slow beat on the arm of his chair, pretending to be unaware of just how much it irritated her. At last there was a gentle rap on the door before it burst open an instant later. A small, colourfully dressed girl arrowed into the room, flapping her arms and startling him backward in his chair. "Arg! Arg!" She raced once round him before coming to a halt and folding her hands under her armpits. She glared at him, then cocked her head to one side. "Arg!" Long black hair, a round face, alert, amber-flecked eyes, brown skin, freshly grubby, pink jeans. The Mother Superior's open mouth closed, and she collected herself with a visible effort. "Sarah, if you don't start behaving like a young lady rather than some crazy thing, at once there'll be 6 of the best." Sarah pouted. "But I'm an eagle." After a moment, though, she added a final, almost polite of compliance. Sister Rowena had cautiously followed the girl in. "I'm sorry for the delay, Mother, but Sarah had climbed to the top of the old elm again." "Because eagles like trees," Sarah whispered. "Oh, Sarah," again, before the nun could reprimand her further. "An eagle is just what I've been looking for."
Okay, so what this comes down to is basically why should you buy a book about a female assassin come serial killer which came out of a role-playing game? And there are several really good reasons for this. First of all, Luke is really, really good at building up world and background. You get enough to know what's going on, and you get enough to hint at further mysteries to come, which I'm told will be resolved in later novels. Furthermore, Luke writes really well. In all the times that I've read this novel, which I actually hesitate to count how many times that has been, I've hardly ever, in fact perhaps never, come across a sentence which I've thought, that is dreadful. And that happens nearly all the time when I'm reading professional published writers. The third thing is that he has interesting, complex characters that you will have rather strange emotional relationships to you with, and that you will find that you get interested in. And the fourth thing is that I think that now that Luke is more or less devoting himself full-time to writing, he will become a noted writer in Australian in general. And that you, by buying a book today, will be at the beginning of that career. Okay, so all of you, go and buy something. Thank you very much.
They're here.
Yes,
And the egg.
and they're there by the catch biscuits.
Okay.